Hello, we have made it to project 3. Well, almost. We're almost at project 3. We're going to get started learning about some of the principles and the concepts and the ideas that will guide your work in project 3. So project 3 is going to be about visual design. And so the objective for this video is for you to start understanding the importance of visual design and text and see philosophically where we're headed and why we're doing this in a composition course. Then we're really going to focus on the first kind of principle of design, not necessarily the first in everybody's book, but the one that I like to start with, the principle of alignment. And I also want to make sure that you understand the language of alignment, because really what we're doing is we're going to be doing an exercise in visual design and an exercise in using social media as a place to compose and to think about audience. So that's what I hope for this, and we'll move on. So in first year composition, which is what this class is, composing means making texts. And as we saw, a text is not just something that is words on a page or words on a screen. It could be images, it could be sounds, it could be all of those things put together. It could be multimodal. And so the thing is that when we talk about what are the texts that we interact with most in our life, turns out we interact with social media posts almost more than any other kind of text, at least in this moment in the 21st century in 2026. So if you are considering audience, which hopefully you are, our project 1 was composed for an audience of your classmates and your peers. Same for project 2, kind of but more expanded to UAB students. And then project 3, you are going to focus on targeting an audience of all UAB students again. You are not targeting your specific followers. By the way, you're composing for social media, but you do not have to put this on your actual social media accounts. God, no. Unless you really want to. This is going to be a project, though, that you try to think about how am I using design and persuasion to make my text the most interesting and the most possible thing for an audience to actually stop scrolling and pay attention. So that's what we're practicing this project. So I want to look at a couple of examples of bad design, because number one, it's just really fun to kind of nitpick and notice what's no good about visual design, but also it helps us clarify how we can get better. I think we learn how to do better by looking at bad examples. So let's take a look at this piece of design, and let's kind of just notice what is unsavory about it. So for one, whenever I look at it, my eye does not have a clear place to go. I just kind of look at a jumble of a lot of different things, all kind of, I don't know, just together, so that it's unclear what part I should be focusing on. The colors are a little bit, we have one major color, it's that kind of navy, and we have red sort of popping in and out in a way that I want to focus on the red, but I'm not getting good information when I look at the red. Then we have these, the words life-saving numbers are kind of faint and impossible to kind of take a look at. It's all just all over the place. But I especially want to draw your attention to the fact that nothing lines up with anything else. My eye doesn't see a clear pattern in this. What about this one? We have this kind of cluttered image. Again, things feel a little bit too busy, but also I want to draw your attention to the fact that we have items that are just sort of randomly dropped into lots of different places. And so again, both this one and this one have really poor ideas about how to align all of the elements in a way that makes your eye and your brain make the best sense of it. This one is not so much about alignment as it is just about wow, I can't see that. The color, the contrast of the color is so poor. The size of the font doesn't help me see. The color choice is odd. It just sort of blends into the background and makes it almost useless. So here are some of the building blocks of design. We're going to talk about layout and alignment, and that's quite a complex topic. Let me not just gloss over it. You're not going to become a graphic designer in this course, but we're going to learn some basic shorthand. We also want to talk about type, which is font or what the words are written in. We want to talk about color. So how do we think about the colors to use in our designs? And then, of course, image. So these are the building blocks of design, and we're going to focus on layout today. So alignment. I'm working from a book by a woman named Robin Williams, not the Robin Williams, the actor, but a woman. She has several principles, and one of her principles is the principle of alignment, and that is that nothing should be placed on the page arbitrarily when you're doing visual design. Every item should have a visual connection to something else. And you see me draw little lines. When she says connection, she means align in some kind of way, and we're going to see what that looks like. So although you have separated elements to indicate their relationship, and that's the principle of proximity, which we have not talked about. I'm not going to focus too much on that. Alignment tells the reader that even if items are not close, so you can put things close together to suggest a relationship, but even if things are far away from one another in one piece of visual design, there needs to be some kind of relationship that you create between them, and that is done through the way you align them on the page. So let's talk about, and this is one of your objectives, what's the language for alignment that we're going to use? So when I give you feedback, I will refer to some of these things. So alignment is basically what it means when you go to Microsoft Word. Are you putting everything to the left, flush left? So this is an example of flush left. You see a line that goes straight down here. Everything is pressed all the way to the left. This is left alignment. Here's flush right. Everything is pressed all the way to the right of the frame and the visual design. And then this text is centered. We are very familiar with centering. Centering, as we're going to see, is one of the most commonplace alignment choices. And it's also one that seems a little bit boring because people use it so much. And then this text is justified. And what that means is that it has a left and a right alignment. So you see how this one on the, if it's flush left, on the right side, it's kind of a squiggly line. You can't make a straight line down it. Same if it's flush right, the left, you can make a squiggly line here. The squiggly lines in center are going to be just like par for the course, but justified, you have the left and right are both like straight lines where the text is. So this is the basic terminology we're using. So what Robin Williams wants us to use is she wants us to see that a well-designed composition often has a strong set of invisible, or sometimes you can actually draw them out, lines that connect various objects so that the brain and the eye can quickly see that they are related and that they go together. So she gives us an example of this business card, and she says, okay, what is the problem with this business card? It looks like it was just kind of thrown in there. And you notice that whenever she draws invisible lines to try to connect these things, she doesn't. So the alignment here, there is no visible alignment between the ends of the text and the beginnings of the text on this. There's no visible alignment between these elements. So whenever you actually break it down, your brain is like, I don't know, man, what is this? This is kind of weird and awkward. So she says, what if you move them all over to the right and give them one alignment? And also she groups them in related things. So if you go back to this, you see that name is all over here, where it is here, how do you contact, the name of the business is here. She actually groups these more correctly. She says, here's the name of the business and the person who runs it, and then here's all the contact information. But what's important for us is that she chooses a right alignment, a right flush alignment. And she says that, look, that is just a lovely, more pleasing visual way for our brains to make sense of this. So this one has a center alignment, and a lot of people choose center alignment. They say, let's do this. Let's do center alignment. It's the easiest thing. And you can see that there is a line straight down the middle that kind of gives us a symmetry. But she notices that along the edges, we have soft lines. And while there's nothing exactly wrong with soft lines, you miss out on kind of the strength of a more interesting design where you have a strong line. And she says, the strong invisible line connecting the edges gives it this strength. And she'll say that actually a middle alignment can kind of be boring sometimes. So let's take a look at this. So this is an interesting one where we make use of both hard and soft lines. So you see that actually everything over here is left justified, and we have a kind of soft line over to the edge. You have everything justified along this top line. So this invisible line connects with this invisible line, but we have this sort of pleasing line that mirrors the soft edge of this part. So it's kind of nice. And it also, if you just look at this randomly and you stick your eye, says, where does your eye go the most? It kind of wants to start at the top left because that's where our eye usually goes. But then, interestingly, it takes us along the right, along the horizon, and then our eye goes here and it kind of follows down and creates this nice, pleasant circle that we keep going back around to look at the content. So this is a great example of alignment. So it also is a great example of something that you can make use of, which is a viewing pattern. So a viewing pattern is a subconsciously preloaded preference that our brains have. And they often correspond now to either magazine pages or all these are usually online and screens. But designing your content to flow with these patterns helps viewers. So the Z pattern is kind of what we sort of saw just a moment ago. It's where your eyes really will want to go to the top left because that's how we read a page. And then it's going to take it all the way across the top. And then there's a really nice way to bring our eyes back down to the bottom left, and then go along the bottom. So you'll start noticing that this is a design pattern that a lot of websites use. So let's take a look at the Apple website. You start up here, you are drawn along by this strong line all the way through all of the products. But then suddenly this big thing in the middle here takes your attention and draws you down to this image, and then it brings you back across to take a look. So it really is the alignment pulls our eyes to see everything on the page, which is what we're really working for. Then there's the F pattern. That's more for like user experience, more for blog style stuff, more for information. But you'll notice that it's a similar kind of pattern that we experience on a lot of websites. It's one where it asks us to have a strong line to the right to left, but then have a strong alignment down so that it keeps us moving like this. And so that's another really interesting way to do alignment. So one thing that I'm going to press you to do is not to say that centering is illegal, but I would like you to experiment with some different kinds of alignment. So we look at the typical report cover, she says, which is just sort of boringly centered. By the way, APA is boringly centered and there's nothing you can do about it. Those are rules that you cannot break if you're working in APA. But if you're designing your own, you want to be interesting, you want to be bold, you want to be strong. So she says a strong flush left alignment gives the report a more sophisticated impression. And you have the name of the person far away so that it makes it more interesting and you actually pay more attention to it. Here are some other options. She says that, here again is the center, and they're actually using a dotted line to draw those lines around for us so that we actually see the design. Flush left, she suggests, is just a little bit stronger and more interesting. I actually really hate this one. It confuses the hell out of me because it's flush right. You see this? Oop, that's flush right. But then this is flush left. I don't know, man. I kind of can't handle that. That bothers the hell out of me. But this one's interesting. It's all flush right. And she's just asking us to do something a little bit different, but something that still makes sense. So she also wants to say that if you are going to do center, that you don't want a center alignment to be lame like this one, where it's kind of it's like barely any difference. So you still almost have that strong box, but you don't. So it's like a little bit something's missing. If you're going to center, make it very obvious that you did so. So what she says, and I'm not going to strictly enforce, but I will absolutely tell you if you are doing too many different alignments. Here's what you should pay attention to. Choose one form of alignment and stick with it instead of mixing and matching. That's a good way to get started really practicing design that's intentional. And so here's an example of one where, okay, it's flush left over here, but then suddenly it's centered down below. And the question is, why, right? What is the strength of that? And so she says, okay, this one is a little bit different. This one's flush left and this one is flush right, but at least we have some lines that connect it. So this line goes all the way over here, which can then pull down to that. So what I want you to do is I want you to pause this video. I want you to look at this piece of design and I want you to see if you can draw those invisible lines to connect the elements here and find out where are the problems with the alignments. If you circle also the white space, does the white space feel a little bit not uniform or a little bit messy? So I want you to pause this video, look and see what you can kind of determine about the problems with this alignment. Okay, and now you come back and look at what, I'm not going to tell you what the problems with the alignment are because this is going to be part of your homework, but I want you to now look at this version and I would like you to pause and I would like you to say, well, what now has been improved? I need you to use the language of Williams's alignment. So flush, left or right, centered, or an also invisible line.